It's over a month since Sheikh Hasina was overthrown in a dramatic upsurge in Bangladesh. Having ruled for over a decade, Hasina's ouster came as a shock to her allies, particularly India. Hasina's fall has been accompanied by a rise of Islamist groups within Bangladesh. Her departure has a direct impact on India, considering that she was among New Delhi's closest allies. How has the student led uprising followed by Hasina's departure affected Bangladesh? What is the situation on the ground? How deep are the changes brought about by the abrupt change of government in Dhaka? And what's the popular feeling about what has happened in the country? And how do people look at India? These and many more questions are uppermost in the minds of Bangladesh watchers, particularly in India. To get a sense and a direct feel of what is happening in Bangladesh, the Federal senior journalist Samir Purkaesta, who is based in Kolkata, traveled to Bangladesh recently. In this episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise program, where we look at international events threadbare every week and it's telecast every Thursday, we have Samir talking to us on the various questions that are begging for an answer. Welcome, Samir.
Thank you.
Samir, what is your top of the mind takeaway from the visit to Bangladesh?
Apparently, after this 1 month of regime change, apparently, if you stepped into Dhaka, and take this elevated expressway, you won't feel any different on the ground. And even there are usual bars on the streets. Then even the nightclubs, restaurant, come bars are full of people, including women. So very interestingly, because many thought that Bangladesh will immediately turn into an Islamic state, but apparently that's not happening on the ground level. Beneath the veneer of this outer this marker, there is some churning. The country is going through lots of pulls and pressure, and largely because in the student-led uprisings, various interest group convulsed to give it a shape of a popular movement. Though it initially started with anti-quota steered by the students, but gradually it took turn of a mass movement, and various interest groups participated in it, and they succeeded in removing the regime which they dubbed as fascist. So after the regime change, the stakeholders, every stakeholders now their interest to be served, and so there is pull and pressure. But to say that Bangladesh is taking an extreme Islamist stand, that is also not true, because though we tend to think Islam as one homogeneous religion, but it's not so. And there are various strains of Islams, and in Bangladesh, these strains are now, at times at loggerhead, and there are Salafiyat, which is a kind of Wahhabism. It has come out
Samir,
of Wahhabism.
we'll come to this a little later. I was anyway planning to talk to you about this in detail. But overall, the feel is that things are normal. That's what you're saying. I mean, though there are
Yeah,
churnings.
overall on the ground, and you have visited Bangladesh yourself. You know this hospitality and all these things. When you stepped into immigration counter and they welcome you as a mehman and all these things.
Yeah.
That's there. That everything like in the past it's there. Though as an Indian, I have never felt during my stay as an any kind of stigmatized or being an outsider, nothing like that.
In fact,
So
that was my next question. In fact, that was my next question. Whether now that this uprising has happened and we saw reports of some anti-India kind of action and all that, did you see anything of that kind when you were there? What is the feeling of the people towards India, particularly at this point?
see, anti-India feeling is there, but it is directed towards the towards New Delhi, the government policies, not as much against India as a people. During our conversation with BNP leaders, repeatedly, they also harped on this, that the relation should improve, and they have their perspective why this has gone wrong, and particularly with the BNP leaders were complaining that this India's relation towards Bangladesh was Army League centric since the very beginning, and this perception needed to be changed. So that kind of at the political level or at intellectual level in discourse, this anti-India feeling is very much there. But on the ground, when you talk to the common people, they are as hospitable as before, and there is no such kind of antagonism for India. You won't feel
Right.
it on the streets, you won't feel it in hotels, anywhere.
Right. So that's great. I mean, the other, in fact, now we'll come back to what you were telling us earlier about the rise of Islamist groups in Bangladesh, and also the question whether does it in any way threaten the secularism in that country.
See, Bangladesh is no doubt is now at the crossroad, and the country is yet to, because as I said earlier, there are lots of pull and pressures. So the country is yet to decide what identity it will chart, and there is lots of churning about what course it should take. Like there are, as I said, this Islam also, there are various versions of Islam. Jamaat practices the Salafatism, which is a sort of Wahhabism, which is more orthodox, but I won't call them radical. There are another strains which are like militant groups, terrorist groups. They are there, but they are now not on the surface. As of now, they have taken back seats, and most probably they are also wait and took a policy of wait and watch. Overground, these Islamist groups like now Jamaat is trying to forge a alliance of all Islamic group. Jamaat had an alliance with the BNP earlier. So, and in Bangladesh context, Jamaat, particularly in Awami League's narratives, Jamaat and the BNP was almost synonymous. But now, after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina's government, there appears to be some kind of rift surfacing among Jamaat and BNP now, because both of them think they are the now main political contenders. Election hells anytime, they will be competing against each other. So Jamaat and BNP are planning to fight elections separately. Apart from this, there is another strain is of the student groups, those who were the vanguard of this uprising. So the students are also parallelly trying to form their own political platform, though they are not openly admitting it. But these mobilizations and other programs clearly indicate their intention. They sooner or later they will form a political platform. Now, what will be the ideology of these various political groups? We know Jamaat, as sure, it's a Islamist group, but of late, Jamaat's leaders are, softening their stance and trying to be more inclusive. The Jamaat's chief has even said that they were banning Awami League totally. So that kind of political vengeance, they are not favoring any kind of political vengeance. Then during this, immediately after the regime fall, minority communities came under attack. Jamaat and BNP cadres in many areas, they protected minority houses, religious places. That is also happening parallelly. And
So, did you get a chance to talk to the Hindu community? So, how are
yes,
they
yes.
feeling? Yeah.
There is a sense of fear because this country is now in complete flux. Nobody is knowing which side it will take. And there is conflict between various strains of Islam also. Because and when I was there, some Mazars were attacked. So Mazars are basically, it's a subaltern Islam, Sufism, and in Bangladesh, Islam came through Sufism. So that Sufism has a very strong influence, particularly in rural Bangladesh. And as you know, Sufism is relative, is inclusive. It's not very orthodox Islam. Sufism, and after during this student-led uprising, many of the student leaders are actually influenced by this philosophy, Sufi philosophy, subaltern Islam. So their concept of now secularism is different than the concept of secularism, say Western secularism, or and their concept of Islam is also different than orthodox Islamist groups like Jamaat Islam. So there is a conflict in BJP. If you say in Indian context, if we can say, like, even yesterday, Tamil Nadu Governor R.N. Ravi made a comment that secularism is a Western concept. This kind of thing, even those who believe in subaltern Islam in Bangladesh, they also think so, that it's a Western culture and it doesn't fit in Bangladeshi context. So, what kind of secularism they want? They want a secularism where there will be inclusiveness, but somehow the Islam, it cannot ignore the historical this significance of Islam in building Bangladesh's in shaping Bangladesh's culture, politics, and society. So
Yeah,
it's
so Samir, yeah. See, so we have seen in the past what extreme Islamism could do. There was a targeting of atheists, there was a targeting of secular people. People were killed and all that some time back. Now that is before the time of Sheikh Hasina. So, you think something like that will return, or is during the period of Sheikh Hasina, the secular groups, have they consolidated themselves? I know, are they in a position to resist this move towards the right and towards
see
Islamism?
See, what I feel is that this secular spirit has been diluted during Sheikh Hasina's regime itself. Because if you talk to Hindu communities, they will tell that most of their lands and properties were grabbed by army leaders, not as much as Jamaat or BNP, as we tend to believe in India. In the name of giving protection to the minority communities, they have played politics, and they kind of try to sustain this fear among the minority communities that this bogey of Islamization or Islamic phobia they have try to this thing try to sustain throughout the regime. And if you see the growth of madrasas and all these things, it took place during the army regime, not
Yeah.
in the last 15 years. So it's not that this during Sheikh Hasina's regime, Bangladesh was completely a secular liberal country. It was not like that.
Mm.
But even in the past, and even now, there is a strong left liberal secular elements in the society, and they are now also trying to regroup and trying to they have formed several civil society platforms to put pressure on the this interim government, so that it doesn't take an extreme right turn. So that kind of pressure group is also there, and they are also quite significant in number, and they're quite influential in the society.
Okay, that's great. So the other thing is, in the Islamist groups in Bangladesh, while they're internally there is a certain dynamics to it, are they also, as far as the worldview is concerned, are they more pro-Pakistan than say India?
See, yes, there is obviously some Islamist group, like as I says, Jamaat, but not the subaltern Islamic group. Subaltern Islamic group, they totally reject, Arabian Islam. They say that the Islam in Bangladesh should be Bengali Islam. It should be rooted in Bengali culture and civilizational history, but without ignoring the history of Islam. But
But I meant politically, are they pro-Pakistan, the Islamists?
no, these subaltern groups are not pro-Pakistan, but the Jamaat. They are definitely, because in the Bangladesh's liberation war, Jamaat to sided with Pakistan. They had that kind of history, and that interestingly, till now, in Bangladesh's, if you see in electoral politics, Jamaat has only 5 to 7% votes, and in the last 50 years, that vote share didn't increase. So electorally, Jamaat has a very narrow presence, though very limited presence. Though in society, their influence is, they have a significant influence, but along with Jamaat, there are other strains like Tablighi Jamaat. They have
Mhm.
also very strong presence in society. But Tablighi, as you know, they don't believe in believe in indulging in politics and other things. So they are mostly concentrate in spreading religion and all. When it comes to inclusiveness, they are not very antagonist towards other religion. They concentrate mostly in spreading their own religion. Coming back to your question, whether this group, Jamaat is, yes, Jamaat is pro-Pakistan, and recent incident like for the first time, Muhammad Ali Jinnah's, birth anniversary was celebrated in Bangladesh earlier this month. So interim government has also decided to reintroduce Urdu service in Bangladesh radio. So this
Hmm.
kind of development is also taking place.
Yeah, so there are signs that it's kind of more accommodative to Pakistan and Urdu and all that. But coming to connected related question, Muhammad Yunus appears more like a lame duck government. Is he really in control of what's happening in Bangladesh? I mean, as far as administration and policies are concerned.
The law and order situation is very bad. Lots of mob lynching is still happening. Dacoities and this kind of incidents, crimes have increased. Yesterday at Cox's Bazar, one army lieutenant was stabbed to death. So by apparently by dacoits. So these kind of incidents are taking place because they suddenly came to the power and they didn't have any roadmap. After removing Hasina, what next? That roadmap was not there. So they suddenly came to the power after such a massive uprising. Every groups now, they believe they are the stakeholders, and they have the rights to take law onto their hands, because we made this happen. In a way, they feel that we are the government. That kind of feeling is there. Police force is totally demoralized, and many have not yet joined service, because during this uprising, particularly after the collapse of the Army League government, they had to face lots of public ire, and many policemen were killed. So they were forced to abandon their police stations and their posts. So police are a very demoralized force yet, and this the priority of this government will be to reveal the confidence among the police force. And committee has also been a reform committee has also been constituted to bring in reform and to bring back the confidence into the force. So that kind of move is also taking place. And recently, the magisterial power has been given to army to take control of the law and order situation, because it has deteriorated to such an extent that army had to had to be given magisterial power. Basically, now they are controlling law and order.
Okay, and this is the last question, Samir. So, how do you, get a sense of where the country is heading now? What do you think? is going to happen, say in the near future?
See, there is no doubt that Islamization is on the rise, but the Bangladesh society has inherent some streak of secularism because they have this country has formed by rejecting Islam in that sense, because otherwise there would not have been Bangladesh, because this Bengali culture ethnicity is also very strong, and when this
You mean
Islam,
you mean by rejecting Urdu, I suppose, right? Or
not
you mean
only Urdu, because see, when Islamist group, they started demanding that the national anthem, Sonar Bangla, which is the national anthem of Bangladesh, written by Rabindranath Tagore, scrapped. Immediately this thing from the society, opposition to it came, and even the parties like BNP and all have rejected this outrightly, that they are not supporting this kind of idea. And if you see the movement itself, this student-led uprising, now many parties like BNP, Jamas, they are saying that we were part of this movement and we played an important role. Yes, they played an important role, but why didn't they do, when this movement was on, why didn't they came out openly under their party banners, or with their own identity? Why they were hiding their identity? Because they knew the movement they joined, the this movement will the student led movement will lose would lose its legitimacy. So
right,
not that though it's taking this thing some is right turn, but it is to be seen whether it can totally become an Afghanistan. But my personal sense is that it might become like Indonesia, where Indonesia is a very secular country or liberal country, you can say, but many Shariat laws are there in the constitution, entirely Islamist, but not also totally secular.
right. It's a kind of a moderate Islam. So you have a sense of both. You get secularism plus Islam in some, in a
Yeah,
very easygoing combination. I mean, I would put it that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because as of now, this subaltern Islamist group very influential, and they played a very important role. Their ideologues, they played a very important role in this movement.
yeah. So that was great, Samir. Wonderful. So you could get a sense of what you saw in Bangladesh, also an idea about what's happening there. Thank you so much for joining us at the Worldly Wise program. Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank you. It's my pleasure.